In this video session, we'll now look at using the project pavement attributes that we set in the previous video. Here we have a traditional subdivision type road, has intersections, cul-de-sac, and in our road design for this road here, we've continued our lipper curb through the intersection, and on this side here we've taken the lipper curb out. So bring up the MTF file for road number 1. Some of the roads have already had the pavement ran in the MTF via a snippet. This road here and the curb return. We're just going to look at the roads that are here and go through the process. So again, the snippets use the pavement attributes. So under the road toolbar, I can select the icon. So in this particular subdivision, we've only got one reference tile, some curved ones, two types, zone pavement 1, zone pavement 2. In the pavement only, we have a general road, we have a rock protection for a drain, and then the concrete drain process here. So in the pavement batter, for the rule type road, we've just got a simple general rule. So again, we're looking at reference tile 1, and we have different zones for the different types: curb, pavement only, and pavement batter. Let's look at our road number 1. We've got left hand side. We set up our normal design process. In that case here, we've used a template, removed certain strings through intersections, a typical process you would have for a subdivision. We set up an alias here. The alias is for the use of pavement type 1, which goes from the start of the string to one of the curb returns. And after that point, we'll change over the pavement type. So all the attributes have been copied into my project area from the library. Quite a good practice, especially when you're working on a job, and so any changes to any library ones won't affect your apply menu. You won't have to reload the snippets. So all the snippets that use the attributes have the word from attributes at the end of them. So again, there's quite a few: try pavements, batter from attributes, cul-de-sac, curb from attributes, curb only, curb return, and so forth. We're not going to go through every single one in this video, but that's the naming convention. So we're going to, when we pick the pavement curb from attributes, the panel comes up, and all the information to do with the type of pavement, depths, colours, and that sort of stuff is stored in the attributes, not in the snippet panel. So again, anything that changes in that in those attributes is then reflected in when you apply the snippet. So reference tile 1, zone number 1. So again, zone number 1 is just a simple layer curve with 2 layers underneath. Right, so the reference tile, zone number 1. There's also a tri-mesh name suffix. In this case here, we're going to default to all characters, which means the road's called road number 1. So it'll be added on to the naming convention in the snippets, in the parameters. So again here, so we'll have mesh pavement road 1, mesh strings pavement road 1, and sub mesh substrings pavement road 1. So again, that road 1 gets added on, so each individual road is has its own tri-mesh pavements. The start mode can vary. In this case here, we're going to look at just the reference string, but there are choices: reference, 3D cut link, 2D cut link height from design, and 2D cut string height from design. So obviously when you pick the reference, these two here are just optional depending on what you chose there. The start link layer can also be something other than design, and we've typed in the names of the strings for the curve profile. So again, in our curve profile, we've got KLL, KIL, TL, and BL. So the naming convention the L and the R is included in the name itself, not as part of the adding a L and R after post-process. These are optional, so you have to fill in at least 2, so the third and the fourth are optional strings. So that way you can do an edge, a curb only, or a rollover or barrier curb. The pavement that goes under the curb, you've got the choice between use the road surfaces calculated here, which would take into account super elevation and so forth, or specify a certain crossfall or a named grade. So I recalculate my road, and again, here's my road profile. So back in my section view, there's my pavement. So again, it's just the same details. The depth and so forth is all controlled by the attribute. So any change in there will be updated here. So now looking at the other features that are available on the right hand side. Obviously you would have the same as what's on the left hand side. So again, it's got an alias in there, and we can look at copying the one from the left to the right. So we go modifier left, I can copy that, and then basically paste the one in here. So all we have to do now is just change the string names to what reflects on the right hand side. So we have our profiles on the left and right. We can now utilize the pavement only attributes we have. So inside there we've got the rock protection down the side of the batter here, and then a zone 3, which is the concrete drain. So again, it's just a matter on the right hand side in your MTF file is specifying those two. So we'll look at my first pavement only. So I select pavement only from the directory. I'm looking at a reference style 1, zone number 2, and again I'm picking a point here and a point there, but this first point is not the reference line. It's just a 3D link. So I'm picking up EXR, which is the point on the shoulder, and then my second mode is also a 3D cut link, and I'm picking up the string here. So in this particular pavement only, the depth option can either be vertical or normal. So most times in a row profile like this, or a profile on here, vertical would be okay. But for the rock protection batter, we're looking at a normal measurement. So we set that to normal. As we use these snippets multiple times along the road, or even adjacent to each other, it's a good idea to have the extra zone alias, which gets added to the name of the strings and the tri-mesh to make it individual to other ones. So here I've just put an alias in, R1, which is rock batter 1. So if I did another one over the side over here, that would be R2, rock batter 2. So there's my rock batter. If I go to my perspective view, you can see the rock batter on the side here. So as we go through the modifiers, there are checks done on whether or not strings exist or not. So the idea of what changes or starter in that you use this over, is not as rigid as what it may be for other modifiers, but still a good idea to define areas that make sense for that particular snippet. In this case here we're picking up number 3, which is a concrete base. Again, the choice here is 3D cut link. It's not a reference, and we picked up the string name. We picked up the string name here. Again, they can be on other layers, but in that case here we're just using the design layer. So again, I'm picking up the depth is just vertical, and I'm putting a DR name for the name of the tri-mesh when it gets created. And then we have our new tri-mesh for our drain, and the process through here. So we have a look at the string inquire. We can set that to 12D inquire, and we pick on there. You can see that the name of the mesh is CDR RDR row 1. So it's had that DR added in along with the row 1, but the model name is still called Mesh Pavement Row 1. So each one of these has got an individual name, and that name is all user definable. So if we look at the process here, we're looking at our road pavements. We're also going to look at the actual curb return. So this other road was done exactly the same way, using the curb from attributes, picking your strings and applying the particular reference style that you're after. So this curb return has been done using a snippet. So we're just going to do this one over here. Again, it's a snippet, and if I select off the list here, I'm looking at a tri-pavement curb return from attributes. It's looking at reference style 1 and so forth. So we're looking at the strings that need to be selected for the curb. So I just got KLL, K top L, and then K back L. We're using the roads under the curb. We're just going to use the road surface. We're looking at approach string and departure string. So in that case here, we just like the normal 12D curb return function. I want to be able to select a string this way and a string that way. So if I go back and look at my approach string is, in this case, is the alignment string there, and my departure string is the lip of curb on that road. And I recalc. That's curb return 2. So now if I add the mols in, so I'm looking at things that start with mesh. So mesh pavement curb return 2, and there's my curb return done. So that's that curb return one is especially written obviously to do curb returns. So for the cul-de-sac, there's something similar. So we edit the function for that. And again, I bring up the snippet. There's a snippet called tri-pavement cul-de-sac from attributes. In that case here, again, it looks at the reference style and the zone number. We're looking at the string names, and it also just asks you to pick a center line for your cul-de-sac. Again, we're looking at the models, looking at mesh pavement, and there's our pavement for our cul-de-sac. Right, so similarly, you would do these curb returns the same way. So for the rural type subdivision or rural type roads where you haven't got curbs, again we can have a look at our road here, and the left hand side of the road we have a snippet now. It's similar, it's from attributes, but it's a tri-pavement batter from attributes. So again, it picks up the reference style and zone number, whatever you're after. It's this one starting from the reference string outwards. Then asks you for the edge string, and normally your edge of shoulder. And then you have to specify what defines your batter slope. So in that case here, we're looking at these strings here. So we've got our edge of shoulder, and we need to say, how do I want to specify my batter so that my pavement will then intersect and daylight to this batter line? You've got the choice to either use links, crossfall, or name grade. In this case here, we've got some strings, and we can specify a string down the bottom here. That can either we can specify one for cut and one for fill, but in this case here, the one string runs the entire job, so we don't have to specify it twice. Do a redraw. We've now got our row profile there. If I add in the model, row 6, look at our pavement there. So here goes, we get a little bit of a difference in pavement depth, but that's the idea of being able to utilise the attributes. So we'll look at the curb return option, similar to the curb one. This is one that does a batter return. So again, if I look in here, there's a snippet there for you. Try pavement return batter from attributes rather than curb return. It's return batter. So again, it looks at a similar way. It looks at your centerline string, which was the edge of shoulder here. Then it looks at the batter line, and it's looking at a approach and departure string similar to the other one. So you look at your approach string this way, which is lip of curb, and your departure string, which was the reference center line. So again, if we go F2, we've got a direct link back to using the inquire, 12D inquire. Got a direct link back to the name of the trimesh you've picked, and also its details, what its base layer, its layer description, base, the reference style it came from, zone number, and depth and information to do with that particular trimesh. And again, that's reference style 1, zone 1. So I go back to my row profile here, and again we select our row 1. So in the process of doing our actual design, we want to do some subgrade for this bottom layer. So again, if I go into reference style 1, zone 1, and I drop down to the layer here, I can now say, yes, I wish to create subgrade strings for the triangulation. So I say yes to that. Set. Obviously that'll be for everywhere this pavement layer is used. Again, if I then recalc, so again you can just recalc outside the MTF file. In this case here, the pertaining to the naming convention, there should be a model called sub pavement base row 1, and here's the strings created. So there's a string here, some there, and some there. So these are all the strings that you need to create the subgrade triangulation. You can do subgrade strings for every layer in the job except for the curb in this case here. Now to triangulate these strings, they're all set up in a certain way and have attributes to turn strings on and off depending on whether they're needed in the actual triangulation. So to run the triangulation, You're going to use a beta. Some of these options are under user beta, and they will in future versions appear on toolbars. So we're looking at Subgrade, create tins. So I'm looking at row 1 subgrade tin. So I picked the road centerline and I've got the model that was created from the snippet. And that's all you need to do to get the actual triangulation created for your subgrade. So we add in now, so under the sub, so the tin surface created underneath follows the same naming convention as the rest. So again, if I do a inquiry on that, it's got the same name, sub pavement road base row 1, but it's on a model with the word tin added to it, so to keep that naming convention going. So again, you can do those for each road that you have. If you decide to do the subgrade for the entire subdivision, you have the option to either create individual tins for every road, or you can tick this box on here, which only creates one tin or for all those road surfaces, so depending on how many or what use you're using the tins for. So if I look finally at some of the start mode options, it's on the left hand side here. So start mode, again, this one here at the moment is just using our reference line, but we also have the choice to do either another cut string. So if you have a lane line here, you could use that, but you also can use on the choice here a 2D cut string height from design. In that case here, you can pick a string that possibly may be a survey string or an edge string on the road, and you want to use that string as an offset for your pavement to start from. So rather than specifying a static distance, you're allowed to create a string that can wander back and forwards down your road. So if I apply that, and if we add back in our mesh for road 1, you can see now my mesh pavement looks like this. So it's use that string as an offset to start the pavement from. So also in this particular options here, you're able to introduce a saw cut. So here I could turn around and say I want that to be a 1-in-1, one vertical and one horizontal. I can apply that. So this would be more like for cutback strings and things like that, for widenings or producing roads in relation to an existing road surface. So again, we've end up with a surface like that. So if we do have any offsets or anything involved in the pavement, it will also follow that profile. So if I set that back to 0, first off we'll go recalc, and we'll edit function on our road number 1. Go process. So it's reran the tin surface now. So it then follows this profile, goes up the slope, and then comes back and comes down here. So it creates the complete subgrade tin for you. I'll put that back to 0. So again, with the ability to be able to change these attributes, change the depth, add layers, means you can do all this outside the MTF file. So I go into my layer number 1 now, and I drop down to layer 3, and I say the inner offset is 0.5 meters, and I go set, and then just simply recalc the road. It'll now pick up those changes in the attributes, and does a step in the pavement here. So we go and add another layer, layer 4. We'll call this one Subbase. Zoom Z. Different color. And again, recolor road. So the if I drop back to this layer here, make that the 0.5, and then take this one out, put that back to 0, and again recalc. So any changes you do to the or additions you do to layers, whether you add a layer, put offsets in, different depths and things like that, it's all then adjusted once the recalc on the road. For curb, it goes under, for pavement, it goes underneath the curb. There's an automatic adjustment for this depth. If it actually does go on the curb, here you'll see that the depth was deep enough to adjust under the curb. But if I go back to layer number 3 here, and I make the depth 0.15, and then again recut the road. It's now done the adjustment under the curb for this layer here. So that is automatic. So each one of those attribute styles, it's just a matter of you controlling the process. So for each road, if you've got a road that has a different pavement, different depth for some reason, you simply just create another style. Thank you.